Everyone, welcome back. So this is part 3 of my solid axle swap. I wanted to do part 3 after I've driven it for a while. So I've probably put about 400 kilometers on it, and I've got a pretty good idea of how it's doing. In the last 300 kilometers or so, maybe a little bit more, I've been pulling my trailer with it, so about 3,000 pounds. Right now I'm out in the bush, beautiful area. If you want to see it in action, you can check out this channel. I'll link up top here. That's my camping channel. I got a cargo trailer that I converted to a camper, and I tow it with this truck. But anyways, that's not why you're watching this video. Let's talk about the solid axle swap. So after driving it, I really like it. I have to say I enjoy it a lot. It feels really solid. The four-wheel drive, before when I'd put it in four-wheel drive, I'd get like a clunk going forward. I think it was from a lot of the front end parts had play in it. Also, I just love how beefy it is. You know, like everything's solid. It's got the 1-ton steering and the half-ton axles, and it just feels well built. So overall though, the truck itself, I didn't really change much. All I did is I took out the 3-inch body lift. So there's a 3-inch body lift, so I removed that, back down to factory, and then we lifted it up. The amount of lift I gave it, I would say not high, like maybe 4 inches, 4.5 inches, something like that. Not much higher than that. Right now, when I do the walk around, the back of the truck is loaded with a couple 100 pounds of gear, because I've got, you know, fuel, diesel, wood, my chainsaw, everything's in there. Anyways, tons of stuff. A spare tire for the truck, spare tire for the trailer, lots of stuff. But anyways, so when you see how it's sitting, it's actually usually about 1 inch higher at the back. So to start off with, I'm just going to show you some clips of the suspension. So this is with the front tires off, and you'll notice this is the way that I built this, because everybody's going to build theirs different. Some want it really high so they can fit big tires on it, maybe to go through mud. Others, you know, rock crawlers, again, big tires, you know, doubler transfer cases. But with mine, I just wanted a solid, reliable truck that would look almost like stock, and I'd be able to just use, you know, it'd be solid. I could pull my big trailer with it, no big deal. And I think I achieved that. I also wanted it low. I didn't really want to go high at all. I love the stability of having it low. I love the full width axles. So when you notice the suspension, that's full compression. It gets tucked right up there. Like the axle tube itself is only about 2 inches, 2.5 inches before it hits the frame. So that diff fits right in between the oil pan and the frame rail, no problem. And again, I think that's the benefit of going with a full width, because otherwise that diff, the pumpkin, is right underneath your oil pan, which I don't know, I don't think you want that, because our trucks weren't designed for that. Okay, so that's the suspension. That's how you can see it articulating there. It's got quite a bit of articulation. It would be a lot better if I built my own radius arms, and maybe in the future I might do that, but honestly right now I'm just happy with the way it is. Maybe when the bushings go. I did have to change the rear radius arm bushings to polyurethane, because originally I went with rubber, but I found to stop, once I got it out and started flexing, it would get loose in the steering. I'd get a little bit of shudder. So I tried and suck it up as much as I could, but then what happened is my drive shaft, the slip yoke on my drive shaft was so close, because I pulled it back probably about 1 inch with those rubber bushings, that my slip yoke was now almost touching it. I didn't want to hit a bump and break my transfer case. So I dropped my radius arms, put on polyurethane bushings. It's perfect now, no problem. I did notice I've got some play in the steering, and I think it's from using this old steering box. I'll show it to you. I'll see if I can get it set up with the set up on the tripod under there, because there's a couple things that are doing it. First off, the way the steering box is, the sector shaft on the steering box is really long, and so it's a lot of torque on the frame back and forth, and you'll see that. You'll see the frame, my frame flexing, even though it's only like maybe that far away from my cross member, my support. And also it's plated, and even my track bar, the brace for my track bar goes quite a ways up my frame, so that would also strengthen it, but it's still torquing back and forth. So what I'm going to do is I've ordered a new power steering box. That's going to fix the play in the sector shaft, but also to stop that torque is I'm going to put a brace on the bottom of my sector shaft. There's a company out in California, they make a little fitting that screws onto, I think it's 7/8 14 thread, screws onto the bottom of your sector shaft, and then you can run a little hem joint. And that's what I'm going to run on a tube to the 3/4 hem, and then just tie it into the frame on the other side. And I think that's going to lock it in nice and solid. So that's going to be in a couple weeks, I'll get that done. And then the new steering box. And I believe that's going to fix all of my wandering problems, because I've got a little bit of wander, but everything else is locked down. The track bar is locked down. There's no play in the steering linkages, just in that steering box. And I mean, it's a 1979. I did rebuild it, but the bottom, there's no bottom bushing or bearing that's replaceable in those old ones, which is kind of dumb. I think the rebuilt ones, they bore it out and they slide either a bushing in there or a bearing. But let's go out, and then I'll walk you around, and I'm going to give you all the parts and pieces that I use. And then I'll try and link everything in the description. There'll be affiliate links. I earn a little bit of commission from it, but hardly anything at all. And if you find it at a better place to buy it there. You know, Rock Auto is usually pretty good, but I'm going to link it on Amazon, the parts that I used anyways. Let's get out of here. Let's walk around the truck. Let me show you what I did. I don't know if you can see that, but the truck sits very level. Between that tire and that lip, there's 5 inches. The back one right now, 5 inches. But again, there's a couple 100 pounds in the back. Once that's out, that's an inch higher. And I think that's almost perfect for 35-inch tires. You can see the radius arm underneath there. Okay, so let's start on the back here. On the rear, I'm using the factory leaf springs, and then I added an add-a-leaf. Polyurethane bushings on the leaf springs. I'm using my factory shocks, and I just welded a bracket on the 9-inch, so it fits up on there. I just didn't want them hanging down below. That's the factory drive shaft, and then I used a Spicer 5-793 conversion U-joint, and basically that's just going from the big cap to the little cap. I'm running 456 gears and limited slip front and back. That yoke that's on there, that really made the factory drive shaft work. So that's an All-Star Performance extended yoke. Normally I think they're 4-inch, this is 5-inch, so it comes out an extra inch, and that made it so that the slip yoke on the drive shaft would fit. That's a resonator there. Then my muffler, Flowmaster FX, then the cat. So this is all 3-inch, and this is from an F150 5-liter Coyote. Basically what I do is I check online, Amazon clearance in my area, and so this kit, they were selling it for $125. 3-inch all the way back. If you can see all the way back. So that's a pretty darn good deal for the whole thing. And then I just put in a Flowmaster FX 3-inch muffler offset, and then I put in high flow cats. And I built my own Y pipe. See that okay? So then on the back, to achieve the lift match the front, I've got just the factory blocks there. Then I use Beltec. See if I can get around here back better. Ugh. There we go. So then I use these Beltec 6400 shackle kit. But look at how flat my leaf springs are. They're almost dead flat. And that's only with a couple 100 pounds back there. So I'd love to try and get a little bit more of an arch, just an inch or two, or just so that it didn't drop when I'm towing, because it's almost like a squatted truck when I'm towing my trailer. The rims I just got off of Facebook Marketplace. Some guys selling them for 50 bucks for a set. They're 17-inch rims. Basically, it just helps the backspace. Ram rims basically hardly have any backspace at all to them. So you can see they barely stick out. But, like here, Look at my hub. I'd say it's in maybe by 1/2 inch. So you could probably clean off your hub pretty good if you weren't careful. These are those Kenda tires, 35, 10.5, 17s. And then I just put in the Warren locking hubs. Might as well get going on the front here. So these brackets here, they're just factory 1979 F150 brackets. They're a little bit heavy duty. So I bolted them, welded them onto the frame, and then I welded them to the cross member to support them. I had to come out about 1 inch. Factory radius arms, I've got a 4-degree caster on them, but look at, they're almost level as it is, just because again, I didn't jack it way up at the front. Coil springs in there. They're early Bronco 3.5 inch. They're non-progressive, they're just a normal coil spring. So they're pretty stiff, but I like them. They flex enough. It's softer up front than my cranked torsion bars. It's a better ride. The sway bar, that's out of a 2010 F250. All the brackets that I had, they're all from Ruff stuff. They're really good prices. Again, 456 in the front. I did not end up putting a steering damper in there, but I'm 100% I'm not sold on it yet. And I'm finding these disconnects are clunking. They're driving me crazy. As soon as I take rid of them, nope, no more clunking. So I know it's these. So the front drive shaft, that's a special adapter there. I'll link it in the description. But what it does is it allows me to bolt this constant velocity U-joint up to the old fixed one. And then I just used a factory, that's a factory 2000 Jeep Cherokee front drive shaft. And again, there's those poly bushings, and that made a world of difference. Because what was happening, that distance in there was getting too tight. Right now, I put the poly bushings and then I cycled it all the way up, and it didn't touch. It still had about 1/4 inch. You can see in there, that's the vent. So I just drilled it out and tapped it, and I put a vent all the way up to in my engine compartment. I did the same with the 9-inch. Just running the factory brake lines for the 79 F150, and then the flex line just goes right up to there. And then I'm just running these brake lines right to my master. I'm not running through any proportioning valve or anything, and I think it's perfect. If you were to run disc brakes on the back, I think you'd have to run through a proportioning valve. But me with the drums, yeah, they engage more, but it's not really a big deal. It stops really nicely. The front shock mounts, these are just Super Duty shock mounts. I think they're Dorman. And then I just bolted, you can see back there, I bolted and tapped them into the plate that I put on. The shocks, Ford Sport Trac. Again, I just went to Rock Auto, looked at what was on clearance, roughly the length, because they give you the full collapse and full extended length. So I knew my full collapse length and my full extended length. So I just got these shocks from Sport Trac, and they're a 3-inch lift for the Sport Trac. It's for the rear, right? Because it doesn't have the eyelet on on the front shock. So on the rear shock, so that's a 3-inch lift for Sport Trac, and that gives me a lot of drop, and full collapse doesn't touch. And I think they were 22 bucks or something each. Again, that's the Ruff stuff, buckets with the clamp there to hold the spring. I'm just using factory bottom buckets down there, you can see right there. And what I did is you can spin them. You can put them this way or this way. And this way it moves the spring out from the truck. I flipped them so it moved the spring in probably about 2 inches. But you can see it's not really, there's a slight tilt to it, but not bad. Like maybe, I don't know, 1/2 inch, maybe. And maybe if I brought it all the way out, the spring all the way out to the tip, obviously rebuild all the front. These are GM tie rod ends, so that's 1 ton GM all over. These are GM 1 ton. And then I'm just running this Y link because this kept everything low. I had the high steer up here, but when I went from the high steer over to the steering box, my up travel was only 1 inch, and then that high steer was hitting the frame. This way I've got 4.5 inches up travel before that bumper hits the frame. Again, you can see the steering damper in there. Again, those coil springs, those are just the early Bronco 3.5 inch lift springs, and they're 20 inches extended. 16 inches right now under compression, just sitting here. So you can see the tires do stick out a little bit, but not bad. I think I got a little excessive camber going on here. I got to take it in for an alignment. Well, what I'm going to do is just take it for an alignment check and then fix it at home. I kind of don't trust them in the shop, but once I get the measurements, I'll adjust it. You can adjust the camber in these Dana 44 using the upper ball joint a couple degrees. You can't go wild, but let me show you the steering shaft inside, and I'll just pop the hood. So I just put a yellow top battery in there. Factory power steering pump, reservoir, everything works great. Honestly, there's no problem. I can one finger turn it when it's stopped, and it's got a lot of power. For these are just 35s, and they're narrow 35s. They're only 10.5, but anyways, supercharged, as you know. And you can see I just took the ABS module that was out here, and then I just ran the rear. The fitting, I just put on the new fitting and ran it into the back, and then this is the front brake line right here. Basically it just runs straight down to that flex line. There's my vents for my rear and front diff, and then eventually I'm going to get my transfer case and transmission on there also. Oh yeah, right, so then the steering. So you can see that's the pillow block there. So I'm coming out of factory steering shaft right down there. Let's move some of this stuff. Yeah, into this U-joint there. It's kind of a weird one. It's a double. It's out of an Econoline. What year is it? 2009 Econoline. But I think you can get them out of anything from a 97 to like a 2018 or 17 or something. But what you use is just the part from that U-joint down this collapsible shaft down there. You can see the collapsible shaft, and then down there I just put on a universal U-joint, and you could just get it the fitting on the end for whatever you want, right? Like this is a 36, I think they call it 36 spline into a 1979 F150, and this is 3/4 D. So it comes out of there, and I just cut it and ground it, and then it goes into this, and then there's a set screw, everything just like factory, into this universal, and then 36 spline. Perfect. And then this collapses, so if there's ever an accident, this collapses instead of pushing the steering column through you. And that's to support it, because we've got a universal there, universal here, and a universal up underneath the dash. I just tied it into the frame. Some guys talk about tying it into the body, but I believe there's enough flex in there, because I mean there's a universal here, there's a universal up there. This stinking thing could flex quite a bit and it would still work okay before it would bind up. That's my feeling anyways. If it's different, I'll chop it off and put it onto the body, no problem. Just a factory master cylinder works perfect. Put an aluminum radiator in it. The interior is still just the same. It's just my transfer case. I had to put a little steeper bend in this shaft. None of this, I didn't have any of the level 2 FX4 shifters or boots or any of that stuff didn't come with it. And I kind of wanted another cup holder. So I just took the factory Ranger bezel here, chopped out a section there where the transfer case comes up. And then what I used is just tubing, and then the boot, because these boots are meant to just snap over your factory boots, and so then that fits right over here. But underneath here I've put a seal, obviously weather seals under there, and rubber seal underneath that one so that no dust is coming in here. My gauges, air fuel, oil pressure, boost, coolant. I hope that helps. Give you kind of an idea of what I did for my truck. And again, I'm not saying that this is the best way or the only way to do it. I think again, everybody's different, and you got to build it for what you want to use it for. But I think that's a pretty good looking truck. They can't even notice that it's got the solid axle swap in it. And I like that. I don't really like the tires sticking way out. I just wanted it to look factory, and I think I achieved that. So if you got any questions, please let me know in the comments below. Maybe if there's something that I missed. I tried to write down everything and give you as much information as I can, and I'm sorry these things are so long, but I know when I went to do this and when I wanted to build it, there really wasn't tons of information out there. So that's it. We're gonna wrap that up there. Thank you for watching. Thank you for just, viewing the videos even. It does support the channel a little bit. It encourages me to keep on going with this, keep on making videos. Let me know what you'd like to see. Do you want something more basic, like changing light bulbs on your dash type thing, oil changes, or do you want to get into something a little bit more extreme, like this solid axle swap? And also, let me know in the comments below maybe what you would have done different, or what you got planned, what your plans are to do. Okay, we'll see you in the next one. You take care. Bye.